Listen up, everybody. This is Attorney Bowers, your accident and injury attorney, coming at you with the episode that the insurance companies do not, I repeat, do not want you to watch. So, if you don't want the insurance companies to win, buckle up, lock in, and pay attention to this episode. This is 100% the episode that when it's out there, and it's on YouTube and it's on Facebook, I guarantee you executives at insurance companies are going to be trying to get this episode shut down, because I am going to tell you something that as you casually sit there watching this episode, whether it be live or after the fact on YouTube, or maybe you're on my website or wherever you are, this is something that in certain situations I'm not even allowed to tell you. Today, we're going to talk about who writes the check when we settle a case, or when, more importantly, when we get a verdict in an auto accident case in Maryland. Okay, this is big stuff, because I say this, I put this out there because if you ever get selected to serve on a jury for one of these cases, I'm going to tell you in this episode things that I would not be able to tell you when you're sitting in that jury box or when you're sitting in that jury panel. Super important stuff. So who's going to pay this claim? And the answer to the question is actually quite simple, quite straightforward, but super important to be explained so that you understand what goes into these cases, just in case you ever end up on a jury. That's right. I'm putting it out there right now as to why I'm even doing this podcast episode, because I wish more people knew this. And I think there's a lot of other injury attorneys out there that wish more people like you understood what I'm about to tell you right now. In almost every single situation, every dime of that settlement is coming from an insurance company. In almost every situation, every dime of that verdict is being paid by an insurance company. That's right. So if you are sitting there and you see injured victim versus negligent driver, insert names here, and in the theater of this trial, there's this nice little old guy or little old lady or whatever sitting at the defense counsel table who is the negligent driver. Some defense attorneys are going to want to turn to the jury and make you feel bad for negligent driver. They want you to think, how on earth is this negligent driver going to pay whatever verdict that we render? How can we do this? I know that guy over there, injured victim, is hurt, but we can't make negligent driver pay $500,000. $600,000. I feel really bad, but somebody has to have already paid those bills. No, they haven't. It hasn't gotten paid, or we wouldn't be here at trial. And more importantly, again, the hush word. Nobody in that courtroom is going to tell you that that attorney or team of defense attorneys sometimes was hired by the insurance company, not by negligent driver, but by the insurance company. Almost never, unless the insurance company themselves has done something wrong, and we'll get into those types of claims in future episodes. But unless the insurance company themselves are the defendant, you're never going to hear about an insurance company, specifically an auto insurance company, through the course of the entire trial. They feel like it's unfair to the insurance company who's technically not a party, to tell the jury, hey, an insurance company's paying this claim. But I'm telling you right now, when I'm allowed to, that an insurance company is paying the claim. Why? Because they take so much money from each and every one of us. In fact, right now, you're watching this thinking about, my insurance rates are going up. They went up 6 months ago. They're now going up again. These greedy expletives, I'm not going to say it, I'm just going to bleep myself in the middle of this podcast, don't even have a great deal of risk unless you know that they're paying this verdict. And there are very, 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 very few exceptions, none of which result in that negligent driver really being burned. You're never going to burn a negligent driver unless they're absolutely uninsured. And then there's still probably insurance for the injured victim that's going to pay that claim. And I say this because it's super important, because again, when we're in the courtroom, there, for whatever reason, legislatively, is some sort of protection for these insurance companies who will drop you in a second if you are 5 minutes late on paying your bill, but don't need to be held accountable for the contracts that they write and for the people that they insured, no matter how sloppily they drive. No, this stuff gets paid by insurance companies. If you've ever been on a jury or watched one of these trials, you're going to see testimony from all sorts of people, least of which being medical, quote, experts that were hired by the defendant. It's the insurance company, to say that the injured person is not that hurt, or they're going to say that the bills for the medical treatment that the injured person had to receive were too high, or that it must have been related to something else, or he or she could have stopped therapy sooner, or didn't need that surgery, or doesn't need the additional surgery, or really could have worked during that time. That doctor is being paid thousands and thousands of dollars to bring that testimony to court. Why would an insurance company pay a quote unquote expert doctor thousands of dollars unless they were doing so to save themselves tens of thousands of dollars? Anytime you see one of those defense expert doctors in there talking about how somebody is not hurt, you can almost guarantee the opposite. That person's job is not to look at those medical records and analyze them. That person's job is to testify that the injured person is not that hurt. It's that simple. And again, like I said, as I started, this is the episode of this podcast that insurance companies are probably going to try to get shut down. Why? Because the philosophy, the business model of these insurance companies is pretty simple and straightforward. Charge premiums, collect premiums, and keep that money any way we possibly can. We will delay claims, we will deny claims, and we will defend claims. And we will spend as much money doing that as we could do just paying these claims what they're worth. Super important stuff here. And I know that I'm getting a little bit heated here because it's a super hot topic for me. Because again, once those folks get into the jury box, we're not allowed to tell them that, hey, by the way, insert insurance company here has hired this attorney. This insurance company is going, not only paying this attorney, but they're paying that defense doctor to say that my guy or my gal is not hurt. And they're also going to pay that verdict. No, I'm not telling you to just throw $1 million on every single one of these claims because an insurance company is going to pay it. You can do it if you want. You're still supposed to, and it's super important that you take in all of the evidence if you're on a jury, that you analyze everything that's going on, that you balance the credibility of witnesses, understanding where that money comes from. Keep in mind, as plaintiffs' attorneys, we pay doctors to come testify. But 99% of the time, the doctors that we are paying to come testify treated the patient. They are actually the doctor that provided care. What we're paying them for is that they're taking an entire day out of their office where they could be treating more patients, and their time is valuable. Most of the time, the defense doctors are not even actively treating patients on a day-to-day basis. They did at one point in time until they were lured to proverbially the dark side, where they realized I could just sit around in my office and not treat patients and make millions of dollars a year just getting paid by insurance companies to say Johnny or Susie's not that hurt. That's their job. So I'm going to keep this episode super, super brief, although it's probably the most important episode that I've ever put out there. Why? Because it's super important stuff that, again, we're not allowed to tell you if you're in the jury box, if you're on the jury panel. You're not, it's a shh, don't tell anybody that there's some big, nasty corporation that's going to end up cutting the check for whatever verdict you put on the sheet. So keep that in mind. Don't get distracted by the noise. Don't feel bad for the person who caused this accident. Focus entirely when you're in these trials on the injured person. Again, some of them may be more credible than others. Some of them certainly are more hurt than others, because no two cases are ever cookie cutter the same for each other. If they are, that's a red flag. Not all of this stuff is absolutely perfect or what you'd want it to be or what you'd expect it to be. You're not going to see this kind of drama or the heated stuff that you see on TV courtrooms in an injury trial. But it's super important that when you're on that jury to understand, it's kind of like, and I'm not going to get political about this, but they say it all the time in politics, follow the money. All the money in these things is coming from an insurance company. All the money at the end is going to be paid by an insurance company. So hold their feet to the fire and keep in mind that most of the time, if they're at trial, it has been 3 or more years since injured victim over here was in this accident. 3 or more years of hoping, waiting, and negotiating to try to get their medical bills paid. There were probably settlement offers that were not even enough to cover the medical bills along the way. Another thing that we're not allowed to talk about in trial are any sort of attempts to settle the case on either side. So you're never going to hear that. You're never going to hear that an insurance company put a really, really crappy offer that wasn't even enough to cover the medical bills, not to mention pain and suffering, wage loss, attorney's fees, etc. None of that's ever going to be whispered in trial. So again, if you're seeing this episode, it means that I have somehow continued to be successful in keeping people from shutting it down. This is absolutely an episode that insurance companies are going to want to shut down because they don't want you, somebody that might end up on a jury, to know who's going to pay this claim. So I'm going to keep this one brief. And as always, I'm going to encourage anybody to send me questions that you might have right up here. info@BowersLawMD, whether they are accident related, whether they are injury related, or maybe there's some other topic of law. I exclusively handle automobile accident cases. If you're asking an accident question, you're going to see just me. If you're asking something outside of that realm, expect this screen to split, as you've seen in the past, and me bring on another attorney in another area of law that knows what they're talking about on your questions. So thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Monday Morning Lawyer. I will be back, as always, next week with a brand new topic. If you want that topic to be something you've determined, if it's a question that you have, again, there you go. info@BowersLawMD. Hit us up. We'd love to discuss, bring in a guest, bring in an expert, somebody to talk about what you want to talk about. Until next week, be well.